anti-Pakistan because they thought we were doing an injustice. It was a bad situation.
Like all great charismatic leaders, Bhutto had flaws, he had great strengths but great weaknesses, and very soon he was in trouble with the establishment, with even the people of Pakistan.
His allies became his opponents himself. He started losing traction with everybody who was part of his victory.
Her father had chosen to call elections. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was re-elected. They were contested, and a massive agitation started in Pakistan.
All this turmoil in Pakistan, protests on the street, big rallies against Pakistan People's Party.
He panicked.
He didn't do enough to spread Islam in the country, to appease the mullahs, if you will.
So he thought he would outflank them by pushing through reforms or demands that they wanted. He made Friday the national holiday, not Sunday. He banned alcohol in the country.
His agenda was too wide and too spread out. The large, huge alliance that he had, that pretty much crumbled down.
I'm not arrogant. I would hate to be arrogant or to consider myself to be arrogant. But certainly I am intolerant of certain stupid things.
When you have power and there's only you and you think you're more intelligent than the rest of the country, that's always a mistake.
I start for my winter vacation because it was my father's birthday. That night there was a dinner in honor of my father. I was told, come and meet the new chief of staff, General Ziaul Haq.
Ziaul Haq was selected and kept as the chief of army staff because he was the least threatening general in Pakistan army. At least that's what Bhutto thought.
My father depended heavily on the reports of inter-services intelligence, so that this choice would make the army very happy.
He frog-leaped Zia over the heads of 5 other generals. Zia was, on the face of it, very humble. That's the phrase often he used, I am your humble servant. And Bhutto was taken in by this show of deference. And then what had to happen, happened.
मिस्टर भुट्टो की हुकूमत खत्म हो चुकी है। सारे मुल्क में माशाल्लाह नाफिज कर दिया गया है। कौमी और सूबाई असेंबलियां तोड़ दी गई हैं। सूबाई गवर्नर और वजीर हटा दिए गए।
General Ziaul Haq seized power in April 1977. Basically, there was a general election. Bhutto would have won that election, but his overzealous supporters in the state apparatus rigged that election, which created the atmosphere which permitted the military to come back in, with the green light given by the US. Henry Kissinger had said to Bhutto, we will make a horrible example out of you.
The charges that were brought against Zulfikar were never proven. They were not warranted. And so this was basically to get rid of him. And then after that, the troubles began for the family.
I was in my 3rd year in university. My brothers had to go back to school. My mother and my father said, even if they try and take you off the plane, if they do whatever, don't, under any circumstances, come out of the airplane. Just stay there and go and finish your education.
He was concerned particularly for the boys, for their safety.
I never knew what was happening to my family. I never knew what was happening to my father. My brother was in Oxford, so I used to go and try and visit him.
They didn't have that proximity over that last 1 year, which Benazir had with her father. Week after week, she'd go to jail to see him, and it was during that period she had these very intense conversations with him about leadership and about the people.
Once her father was toppled and imprisoned, she now became very engaged, very active.
So here we had overnight another charismatic Bhutto.
He gave her the mantle of the party, and in a normal Islamic society, they would give it to the eldest son. But Zulfikar Ali Bhutto gave it to the eldest child, the one he thought could best do the job, and it was a woman.
I suppose that was where I witnessed that transformation, was my friend as an Oxford graduate into that debut politician. It was a huge ongoing struggle for the clearing of her father's name. Then things went from bad to worse.
If my father is executed, I honestly do not believe we can talk of Pakistan as it is today. We cannot talk of a viable country. Pakistan cannot stay united. Pakistan will disintegrate.
Mir went around the world to lobby leaders to try and save Zulfikar from the executioner's noose.
Our message to General Zia is that release my father and hold free election and let the people decide the fate of the country.
We have come out against the military regime headed by General Zia-ul-Haq, which we feel is acting in a manner which is prejudicial.
We were so isolated, and I just used to pretend that it's not going to happen.
Zia knew as long as Zulfikar is alive, Zia can never stay president of the country.
He won't let me off. He knew it. He said he will never let me go.
What do you think that your father would look back on as his own mistakes?
Perhaps choosing General Zia as Chief of Staff?
The billboards of the evening newspapers was Bhutto to hang all over. I remember being really hit, sort of like in the stomach.
Father, very intelligent, Coriolanus in Shakespeare, finally falls out with his own supporters, weakens, and his enemies pounce on him. The whole story of the Bhuttos has strong elements of a Greek tragedy.
He called the jail superintendent and said, "This is the last meeting." And he said, "Yes." He said, "Has the date been fixed?" He said, "Yes." He said, "For when has it been fixed?" He said, "Tonight." My father said to him, "Well, make arrangements for me to shave, to have a bath. It's beautiful earth, and I want to be clean." And he said that tonight I'll be free.
My father was very calm, and he talked of family matters. He talked of party matters, and I keep seeing his face. I said that I'd like to hug my father goodbye. He'd been the president, the prime minister. He'd brought them back from the camps of India. They wouldn't even open the cell doors for me to kiss him goodbye. Said, "This is goodbye until the final meeting." And those were the last words he spoke to either my mother or myself.
Well, I don't want to say much. I came just to tell you that was the personal tragedy. And they tried to break our father. They tortured him for 2 years. They couldn't do that. They tried to ruin his political name, and now they've killed him. We have nothing to be ashamed of. They have buried a martyr today.
Zia's rule proved to be the worst period in Pakistan's history. A fear enveloped the country, and many people said, if they can hang Bhutto, who the hell are we?
I don't know, after my father's death, I came back to Pakistan, and the whole atmosphere changed. I mean, they kept hauling my mother and sister off to different jails. Everything was under martial law order. I mean, they had a martial law order that our last name wasn't allowed to be in the newspapers.
They turned our home into prison, where nobody could enter, where nobody could go out. When you're in detention, it's not the physical aspect which matters, it's the mental. It's having somebody to communicate with.
Zia did not want any activity from the family. So if the brothers are outside the country and the wife and the daughter is in prison, no activity.
Zia was an Islamist. He began a process of Islamicizing Pakistan.
General Zia said, "We are the true defenders. Israel without Judaism would collapse. Pakistan without Islam would collapse."
He imposed Sharia law.
Sharia is a divine, utopian, heavenly code of conduct. Sharia on earth means whatever the leader says Sharia means. But of course, the area in which they had the most devastation was in women's rights, what's often referred to as the hudud laws. The punishment for the